Morning, morning, morning. Today is Monday, October 18th. I know it's a little earlier than usual because of, logistical issues, and I didn't get the word out till yesterday. Usually I do 2 days, and I was traveling this week, so a little bit delayed, but some of you are here. Sometimes I wonder if I'm going to just show up and no one will be here, except Nick. uh, let's set our intention and motivation by saying the four immeasurable prayer. May all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all beings not be separated from the happiness that has never known suffering. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment, anger, and aversion. Today's going to be pretty simple, straightforward. We're going to meditate. I have very little bit of reading, and we'll talk on the questions. If we can answer them, we'll answer them. If not, we won't. Some of this stuff is, there's always trying to find a balance between where we're at and where we can go, and really trying to. We're here for meditation. Everybody came here for meditation, but really trying to see how we can apply meditation to life. Meditation is practice, and practice for what? It's practice for living. It's actually practice for dying as well. That's a whole other story, but it is not in a negative, morose, sad sense, but in a very important sense. But we're practicing, we're sitting on the cushion, we're dealing with our mind, we're training our mind. Not so we can sit on the cushion and have an experience on the cushion, so we can go out into the world and interact with ourselves, our loved ones, our friends, our community, the world, our enemies, and the world. That's what we're doing here. We're not doing it just to have this experience sitting on the cushion here. And I think you all know that. I think we've spoken about that many times. Yet, this practice is, you can't really start to change that interaction without this work. It just does not happen. Unless you're really some advanced spiritual being that's, carried over their mind stream from other lifetimes. This is in my opinion, really, okay, and from what I've been taught and how I've interpreted it, right? It has to be done here. It has to be done with this practice by really checking in and looking. The misconception is always meditation, I can't tell you how ubiquitous it is when people say, I can't meditate my mind. I try and I can't. My mind goes a mile a minute and all that. Everyone's mind does. Nobody's mind is more unique than others. They're just not. We all have different skills and defects and, assets and all that stuff. But the mind thinks. It's going to think until you're dead. So let's put that aside. That's what's going to happen. It's about working with the mind. It's about seeing what the mind is doing, so we can, we're going to experience the world through our mind every way, in every which way. Everything we experience is going to be, the mind is like the operating system of us. It just is, I'm not saying this is all, everything psychological or I don't mean that. I mean, how we experience in the world is through our mind. Even the sense faculties of sight, sound, touch, taste, smell. In Tibetan Buddhism, they talk about the six faculties. The other one is the mental, the mind, the thought, process. That's all coming through the mind. It's interpreted. It enters. It interacts. So if our total interaction with the world is through the mind, it is of immense benefit and certainly essential if we want to have some kind of sane, productive, loving, compassionate, even aside, sane and somehow kind of productive and non-catastrophic experience on this planet. we need to work with the mind. We certainly do. And we're working with our thoughts and we're working with our emotions, which kind of are the same thing. We've talked about it, right? If the sky is the nature of mind, right? The limitless, pure, unstained sky is the nature of mind. The thought is a cloud, which arises from the sky. It comes of the sky. It's not separate from the sky, and it will dissolve into it. And emotions, we almost imagine like the storm. It arises from that, and when a storm is gone, it is gone. That sky becomes clear, crystal blue, placid, peaceful again. And think about how these emotions, thoughts can lead to emotions, emotions can lead to actions, actions that cause, holocausts. I mean, hatred, anger, which turns into hatred in the hands or minds of certain people, result in the most catastrophic kind of, horrific, things of violence and horror and destruction, all those things. So that can come from one mind. Think about that. That one mind whose essential nature is pure and placid like that, some spark of thought that goes into anger, into hatred, into mass destruction. We've seen it, I don't have to name names or historical examples and stuff like that. So, think about that. And think about the converse, if we cultivate minds of love and compassion and kindness, and that can only come through working of the mind. Yes, you have a natural love when a child is born. You hold the child. There's a natural love and connection, and there's aspects of that are innate, not always, but often, and but we're talking about expanding that. Not towards things we have an attachment connection to, my child, my mother, things, but expanding that in a Buddhist point of view to all beings. They say, because of our limitless mind stream and limitless number of incarnations and lifetimes prior to this and beyond this, and if time is an abstract, maybe at the same time, who knows, how does time work or whatever, that mathematically all beings at one time and another, because eternity is incalculable, right? All sentient beings at one time or another has been our beloved mother, child, sister, brother, something. When I asked Garchen Rinpoche, my teacher, if we could start to talk about Dharma in this class, because originally it was a secular meditation class, which means not with any kind of real spiritual component, not a Buddhist component, just meditation, nuts and bolts, which we're going to do today. He said, yes, you can talk about Dharma, but remember, keep the focus on mind. Because Buddha is not the name of a man, it's the name of mind. So we all have Buddha nature, right? Every sentient being. And I was thinking today, I was walking this morning, and I said, if Buddha walked, Shakyamuni Buddha, historical Buddha, walked, if I saw him walking towards me, and I knew it was him, right? What would I do? I'd probably, bow, prostrate on the ground, pray, whatever, touch his shoe, whatever, reverential gesture, but I would, certainly connect and act before Buddha that way, right? But if all of us have Buddha nature, then in essence, all of us are Buddha, because Buddha nature and Buddha is not different. It's just that Buddha has purified all obscurations, delusion, and ignorance, So I'm not saying you're going to prostrate yourself in front of every person that crosses your path. Of course not. We can't. We have to act in a society, and we have to act in a way that's sane, you know. But it made me think, you know. It certainly made me think. So this book, Tales of a Mad Yogi, the life and you know, I'm not going to promote this book right now. If you find it, get it. But I'm not even going to talk about it because it's something that should not be recommended by me, but something you should come across yourself, if that makes sense. But they meant to say something that's very important here. This is about a saint. That word is a very Western word, and it doesn't necessarily apply to Buddhism, but for better or for worse, from about 500 years ago, the Drukpa Kagyu. Drukpa Kagyu is four main sects of Buddhism. Kagyu is one. Garchen Rinpoche is Drikung Kagyu, which is another division of Kagyu lineage. Drukpa Kagyu is another Kagyu lineage. It's talking about the Drukpa Kagyu's interest in the liberative nature of all experiences. That sentence really hit me for some reason. Liberation, which we're talking about when we talk about purification of obscurations, you know, from seeing ourselves and other beings as Buddha, from, you know, liberating from negative emotions, liberation from ignorance and delusion that keeps us from the view of Buddhism about interdependence and impermanence and emptiness, shunyata, and those things, right? Liberative nature of all experiences, things as they are, without conceptual elaboration or embellishment. I mean, that really struck me as something. Every moment of experience presents the possibility of acting, responding, or being in harmony with the situation as it arises. Every moment of experience presents the possibility of acting, responding, or being in harmony with a situation as it arises. I mean, so in essence, life is our teaching, and life is our opportunity to put into practice what we've learned, put into practice what we've practiced, you know. Like I said, engage in the world through the mind, through experience. Now, how we're going to do that is, you know, a lot of that's going to come from how well we work with our mind, how well we tame our mind, how well we start to understand our mind and see how it works and be able to go beyond our habitual conditioned response to the world, to others, to ourselves, these habituated responses that have been cultivated and developing over countless lifetimes and countless eons. This is where we're headed, people. This is where we're headed, you know, as practitioners. This is really where we're headed. Each and every moment of experience presenting the possibility of acting, responding, or being in harmony with the situation as it arises. We're not talking about rules. People confuse Buddhism with other religions that say, you can't do this, you can't do that, you should do that, you should do this. You know, of course, there are ethical disciplines that must be adhered to be able to tame the mind. Sane ones that we don't even have to necessarily talk about. But in terms of rules about, you know, this, you shouldn't do that, or you should do this, or you do this on a Sunday, that's really not essentially what Buddhism is about. It's much more an individual path, an individual spiritual journey, and dealing with one's own mind. And I hope that makes, sense. Um, and it starts with motivation, setting an intention, which you can set in the morning. You can reset those intentions all day long, before you go do a task, before you go shopping, before you go for a walk. May all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all beings be free from suffering, the causes of suffering, the four immeasurables, And the practice, going out to shop and being mindful of going out to shop, being mindful of every person that comes into your view, you know, being present and dedicating, maybe if dedicating whatever merit came from that experience and interaction, you know. So Buddhism is really, it's really a very transformative, kind of revolutionary concept, because what it is really about, we're not really talking anything about religion here. I mean, this whole conversation that we've just had is, none of it to me is religious at all, right? We're not saying anything, this is you should do or this you shouldn't do. Like I said, of course there's ethical discipline. That's basic sanity, right? I'm not even going to get into what those are, but let me see if there's anything else in here I wanted to mention. I marked off a few things. I'm going off a bit on a tangent today, but I think it's okay. Why not? Oh, we're good. Okay. Let's do the 9 purifying breaths. So we take our right finger. Let's first imagine the subtle channel, the subtle body channels, right? There's 3 channels. Go from the crown all the way to the root chakra, kind of below the navel there. 3 channels. The middle one is blue. In men, traditionally, the right one is white and the red one is left. Gender, however you define or don't want to define as a gender, is up to you. It's really not. It's just how you want to envision it. You feel you more want to have the right on the left, that's fine. So you define that as you wish. At below the navel, those 3 join, Imagine like 3 kind of tubes, and at the bottom they kind of join as one. They really go into the center together. And they come up, kind of right adjacent, parallel to the spine, up to the crown. So the white corresponds to negative emotion of anger and its reverse, which is patience. The red, negative quality of attachment, greed, lust, that kind of thing, and the reverse of generosity, love. The middle is ignorance of our true nature, ignorance from the view, obscurations from the view of Buddhism, of interdependence, impermanence, emptiness, and purified would be wisdom, and truth, right? So, right finger to the opposite nostril. We're going to breathe in through the right, going into whatever channel you're putting on the right. I have my white. So we're going to breathe in that air of enlightened air of patience into that white channel, all the way down, and hold. Take the finger to the opposite side. We're going to breathe out of that white channel, we're going to breathe out all that anger, obscured emotion. Do it again. Breathe in patience, breathe out anger. One last time. Imagine it go all the way to the bottom where those 3 channels join. And out. Now we switch. Left hand to the right nostril. We're going to work with the left side channel, which I say is the red. I say from my body is the red. You interpret as you wish. red or white. We're going to breathe in enlightened energy of generosity, contentment, kindness, love. Switch, breathe out attachment, greed, lust, desire, negative desire, you know what I mean? That grasping kind of aggressive desire. Again, breathe in that enlightened energy, air. All the way down where the three channels join, out. One more time. Lastly, we're not holding any nostril. We're going to go into the central channel, the blue. We're going to breathe in that enlightened energy of the truth, of clarity, of wisdom, of emptiness and compassion. Those things are inseparable, emptiness and compassion. Empty of inherent existence. I don't mean nihilistic kind of void. I mean emptiness, meaning nothing is inherently anything except Buddha nature, right? Everything is divisible. Everything is, seems permanent and seems solid, but even on a molecular physical science nature, everything has smaller components, and smaller components is made up of waves and particles and is impermanent, as is the earth and the planets. As we are, our nature is Buddha nature. We are not. There is no, the ultimate truth is non-duality, really interdependence. We're breathing in that realization of that truth. In this blue channel, hold, and we're releasing the delusion, that illusion of separateness, illusion of self. That self is this kind of solid, component or solid existing thingness of itself, and it's not. It's always in flux and always changing, and not separate from other beings at all, and not separate from Buddha nature. Breathe out that delusion. Breathe in the wisdom. Breathe out the delusion. Breathe in that realization. This last breath, when you breathe out, imagine your mind, your consciousness projecting out of the crown of your head and merging with space. Forceful breath out of that crown. Take this into 11 minutes of meditation. The key to this practice is becoming aware of your thought. And once you are aware of the thought, to leave it where it is, let it go, apply a technique. One technique is, once you're aware of the thought, go back to the breath, awareness, the breath moving in and out of the nostrils right above the lip. So every time we have a thought, we're reminded to go back to the breath. Every time we have a thought, we remind ourselves to go back to the breath. We will have thoughts. The key is becoming aware that we're thinking, rather than getting attached to the thought, lost in the thought, following the thought, which begins a chain of thought. What are you aware of? What is the thought? Doesn't really matter. No, it's a thought. Back to the breath. Technique number 2. I'm aware of the thought. I'm going to imagine the thought is a cloud in this limitless, clear, blue, placid, peaceful, loving, stainless sky. And see it just dissolve back into the sky. The sky is completely unaffected, untouched by it, unstained by it. Again, that technique, like the first technique, only works and only can be activated by becoming aware of the fact that we are thinking. This will be your practice for a very long time. I can't say how long, because it's still my practice. Becoming aware of the fact that we're thinking, I mean, I've been meditating only, I say because, compared to many people, it's not a lot of time, but say 14 years. This is exactly what you're doing is my practice, becoming aware of the thoughts. The third technique is mind looking at mind. It's the most subtle, I guess, and maybe the most difficult, maybe not. And all that is that you're trusting the nature of your mind, that calm, sky-like nature of mind. You're resting in it. And by settling into it, you're able to see the thoughts arise and notice them and just leave them and let them go and settle back into that calm nature of mind. Any of these no one of these techniques is better than the other. They're just different. Some of us may have more connection, aptitude, ease with one or the other. It doesn't matter. The whole crux of this practice is becoming aware of what the mind is doing, having awareness of the thought. And it's only through awareness that we can let it go. So in this way, the thought is actually allowing us to practice, rather than the thought being the enemy, the impediment, the failure, the sign that you're not, you're not spiritually advanced or enlightened or anything. The thought is actually the aid. The thought becomes, or even the emotion, becomes the very crux of our practice, becomes the catalyst almost, if you will, of our practice. We can look at it that way. In that sense, you can almost welcome the thought, rather than, how most of us think of meditation as the thought. We got to get rid of the thought, let it go. Welcome the thought, because the thought allows you to, the thought itself allows you to liberate it. The emotion, you can't liberate an emotion without the emotion. The emotion allows you to liberate it, and when you do liberate it, you have that clarity of mind. I'm going to shut up now. Okay. Well, that went by very fast. If you have any questions, we'll try to answer them. Your best advice for dealing with negative thinking. I just explained all that. That's what I've been talking about all class, right? Negative thinking and thought and meditation practice. Predicting the future. I can't predict the future. We can't predict the future. There is no future. There's only the moment. There's the future is not is doesn't exist and is an illusion, as is the past. So anxiety, worry about the future is pretty useless. I mean, of course, making plans is different, but making plans without expectation, I have to figure out what I'm going to do next Tuesday so I can do something. If I'm going to meet somebody. But I mean, I think the future, as far as anxieties, is similar to regrets about the past. They're kind of useless, and they don't really serve us. You have to learn from the past, but once you become, say for instance, right? I had a phone call with somebody I work with, and I got very emotional and very angry about something. Not about that person, but about something we were dealing with together. But my energy was very angry. And I felt very justified in this, and that this person needed to hear me vent all this. And I got off the phone, I realized that was completely inappropriate, completely, not constructive and not how I want to behave, right? So I had to become aware of that. It was already done, but and apologize and realize that this is something, and just say, you confess it. And confess, I don't mean I'm confessing, I mean bring it to awareness. And usually that helps is when it's towards someone else. You reveal it towards someone else. You reveal it so you can really understand it. Take responsibility for it. Just say, I do not want to do this again. And I'm making a, commitment and an effort and an aspiration not to do it again. And that's how we learn. We don't learn from, perfection. We learn from making mistakes, right? And the future is the same thing. Thinking about the future is like the flip side of it is like worry about things that never kind of come to fruition, things that never kind of arise. I've certainly spent so much of my life worried, panicked about things that would never happened. So the best thing is try to stay in the moment as much as possible. George says, if Buddha is the mind, then whose teachings are we following? If he wasn't a man, then I guess I'm confused by where the teachings and stories came from. The teachings are actual Dharma teachings, come from the Dharmakaya, which is the unborn sphere of phenomenon, from which everything springs from. The Buddha obviously was a man. What we refer to the Buddha, we refer to Buddha Shakyamuni, who was a man that lived 2,500 years ago and gave these teachings, but the teachings were not really something he invented. There's something that he discovered that were already there, that they are an innate wisdom, which is mind, that has always been and always will be. Buddha taught a method to purifying the obscurations of mind so we can realize those truths that have always existed, if that makes sense. How can I meditate to help release guilt and resentment? Well, guilt is what I was just talking about, right? I felt guilty that I vented and expressed this anger in a way that was inappropriate and wrong. So confession, by confession, sometimes it's towards the person. Sometimes that's not good because it causes that person further injury. So you have to use your wisdom and your intelligence, right? And you can confess it to a friend, a spiritual friend, or just to, the Buddha, or you know what I mean? Sometimes speaking it out loud is enough because there's certain things, just, telling the truth is not always compassionate or kind, right? We think the truth at all costs. Well, not necessarily. You know, if someone says, "How do I look?" You're going to say, "You look like crap." You may have to say that if someone's abusing themselves and you want them to wake up, but sometimes that's just unkind. It's the truth, maybe, or it's your truth, or your perception, but it might not actually be the best thing to do. You know, we have to use our intelligence and wisdom. I don't mean lie. I don't mean false flattery. I don't mean those things. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Resentment. Listen, meditation, if you really start to practice Dharma and you make an effort towards that and you're practicing meditation, these things start to, the solution to these things start to become evident. I mean, resentment is a very vague thing. What are you resentful of? You know what I mean? Are you jealous? You resent somebody treating you a certain way. There's you can meditate as somebody you resent as a Buddha and put them on your head, imagine them as like sitting in cross-legged, on the lotus petal like a Guru Rinpoche, and put them in a place of reverence on the top of your head as you meditate. That might help the resentment towards others. Also, there is one of our Dharma friends who is sick. I don't know how to pronounce his name because it's Swedish. Um, but his name is, I just want, before I forget, I'll get back to the questions in a minute because someone really asked for this. I don't know if I could find it now. Mm. Oh, yes, here. His name is, oh no, I don't have it. I think his name is Cheno or Chena in Sweden. Uh, so, we set a aspiration that he heals. Okay, this practice is helping me prepare for the arrival of our new beautiful soul in December. Wonderful. Even though I have a 3-year-old daughter now, I've been feeling more anxious as the due date of her sister approaches. I just want to be a good father and not fail my girls and my wife. Of course. There's probably no bigger responsibility than being a parent. But the fact that you're here means that you want to work with your mind so you can respond better, have more patience as a parent, be more compassionate and loving and generous and all these things. So, you know, um, have confidence that you can do that. I don't really know what else to say, but you're doing the right things. If you're here, I mean here, I don't mean by here. I mean here making an effort towards meditation and working with the mind and overcoming some of these negative emotions, being able to work through them with them. Do you feel different energy when you travel? You feel it's the same inner journey no matter where you are. Um, being in a very big city like New York, where currently I spend most of my time, it's you're around a lot of people, and New York is a city where you use a lot of public transportation, you walk a lot, you're always around lots and lots of people. It's a very good opportunity for practice because there's lots of people who will, I'm getting this bright light here. There's lots of people who will test your patience, There's lots of people you can, pray for. You can imagine lots of people as Buddhas. There's lots of practice to be done. And then there's, isolated places, which of course are also good for practice. Um, there's this saying, right? I forget how it goes exactly, but in essence, it's like, um, if you want to protect your feet walking on the earth, you can't cover the entire, there's two ways to do it, right? You can cover the entire earth with leather or whatever, or, canvas, which is impossible. Or you can wear shoes. Meaning, you know, you could try to find the perfect place that is conducive to practice, that you think maybe being isolated and never seeing another person, that's going to give you the ability to really get in touch with the nature of mind and you know uh, Buddha nature and things like that. And a city of 9 million people is the exact opposite place to do that. But it's really about what you're cultivating and what you're bringing to the place. Are you familiar with the multiverse theory? It seems to be in line with Buddhist principles, in line with physics. Do you know any specific Buddhist texts that touch on the subject? Alan Wallace has written some really cool books about the intersection of Buddhism and physics, as has the Dalai Lama. I think The Universe in a Single Atom maybe touches on that. Also, some of the books of Matthew Ricard, who's a monk, who was an attendant of Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche. Matthew Ricard is also a great photographer and a Buddhist monk. I think was a biochemist or biophysicist or something before he became a monk. He's written some interesting books. There's been several. How can we better deal with people in our lives who may contribute and promote negativity, non-productive conversation? People we cannot avoid, such as our bosses, coworker, family, and friends. Better deal. Well, first of all, you will deal with them better when you are not as attached to, the emotion, not in the grips of the emotions that they may inspire, right? And that's through practice, of course. Through not taking it so personal, realizing that some of their negative emotions, and again, I've said this 100,000 times, being a Buddhist is not about being a doormat. It's not about allowing people to abuse you and allowing people to indulge in negative behavior, because that's not compassionate. Letting people be ignorant of those things. It takes a lot of courage, though, because some of these dynamics in interpersonal relationships among people we're closest to are very deeply rooted in habituated roles and dynamics, and very hard to start to change. Like the current, it's like trying to change the current of a river. You're so used to this dynamic, the yin and the yang, the negative and the pot. This person pushes and you pull, or vice versa. But I think the only way that can start to shift is if you start to shift how you're thinking. You start to shift how you work with your own mind. You have the courage to be honest. You have the courage to step out of this very conditioned, habituated role you've chosen, maybe not even chosen, but usually chosen to play, because it was kind of a reflex reaction. It was a coping mechanism. It was a, expectation, this role, this dynamic. But so I said, Buddhist practice, it's very kind of it's really tearing down everything we know and, looking at things in a very different way. It's very revolutionary. I mean that, you know. And that's a little scary, and that takes a lot of courage. It's very, I'm dealing with trying to detach. I'm sitting in my parents' home that passed. The realtor comes this week. So many things in memories. Non-clinging is a real challenge right now. Any thoughts? Non-clinging is a real challenge. The fact that you just said that, Renee, the fact that you have come to a place in your mind and practice and life where you formulate and say this out loud, even though you typed it out loud. Non-clinging is a real challenge. The fact that you put those 5 words, 6 words together is a sign of progress, most likely. I mean, I don't know you. I don't know your life, but um, most of us are not anywhere near aware saying non-clinging is a real challenge because clinging has become our default mechanism. Clinging to what? Clinging to permanence, which is remaining in ignorance towards the view of Buddhism, which is interdependence, non-duality, impermanence, right? That's my thought on it. That you're already, the fact that you're saying this is coming from an awareness of it. So keep traveling that path. What's your favorite time to meditate? Better to do it the same time every day? Can it vary? My favorite time is really early in the morning before the sun has risen, or really late, or lately I've been adding like before bed just because I've been having trouble sleeping, and meditation practice before bed really helps. Is it better to do the same time? I think, anything we want to really, really seriously practice is better when I like having routines. When I'm working, say if I'm doing a show, a movie, something where you have to work every day, long hours, like usually morning, routines really help me because I want to focus on the work, right? So if I have the routines, I know what time I got to get up. I know when I'm going to meditate. I know what I'm going to eat. I do the same thing every day when I work. It just really helps me give the space to the work. So these are not things I have to think about and decide. Those things about what I'm gonna eat, when I'm gonna meditate. That it's like it also helps. Um, I do a lot of different things, different types of work, different types of stuff, and it really helps me. Scheduling really helps. I know Monday morning at 9 o'clock, we're going to do this meditation class together. If it becomes like whenever we're ready, whenever I feel like it, maybe next week we'll do it Friday. I don't know. I'll call you and we'll figure it out. Things don't get done, it seems. This class means a lot to me, this meditation class that we do together. So being really regular and disciplined about it. I think discipline is one of the paramitas, effort effort towards something that has a lot of meaning. I have breast cancer and the physical pain is surmounting from my treatments. How do I pull myself up mentally when the physical pain is so strong? I know this is a mental game, but it's so difficult to persevere when the physical pain clouds me. Physical pain is very difficult to deal with, no doubt. Um, Again, the fact that you're here in the midst of this difficulty already says a lot. You ask, how do you pull yourself up mentally? By being, like I said, not just be here, by committing to a spiritual path, working with your mind and meditating, what you're going through is immensely difficult. And physical pain, I know from these kind of treatments, is very, very difficult. I think just to continue, to do your best, to do your best in practice, in meditation, in working with your mind, despite this physical pain, and not judging whether you're doing it correctly, whether you're succeeding or failing, whether you're not meditating. Sometimes you just may not feel like it, and allowing that, knowing that this will pass. This period of your treatments will pass and you'll get through it. Know that it's temporary and that you'll get through it. You say, I know there's a mental game, but it's so difficult to persevere when the physical pain clouds me. And it is a mental game, but knowing that doesn't necessarily make it easier, it's still very, very, very hard. And it is difficult. Difficult to persevere, but, the fact that you're here, and if you can come every week and give us updates on how you're dealing with this, I'm sure we can all learn from you, and that can be helpful. And your commitment to checking in with us can be of great benefit to a lot of us who will someday go through the same thing, maybe. How do I deal with loneliness? That's a very general question, because sometimes loneliness is not a bad thing. I mean, I don't know. I don't know where you live or what's at your disposal in terms of social activities. I don't really know how to answer that question. I'm sorry. Um, a good way to connect is maybe see how you can be of benefit to others in your community. Is there some place where you can volunteer? Is there something you can do? Is there an elderly person that needs help getting groceries or something like that? Instead of focusing on your loneliness and you feeling alone, maybe focus on, how you can use some of your time to be a benefit to other people. That's a start. I find it very hard to deal with the falseness of relationships. The more I practice, the more I can engage with superficialities. Yeah, but that's okay, And yet, so, is it superficial if you walk down the street and smile at someone? You don't know this person. This person may be a horrible human being. I don't know. This person may do stuff that's, but somehow you want to smile at them or something. Is that superficial? What superficialities, falseness of what relationships? It's can you transform some of these relationships from falseness to realness by being honest, by engaging in some other way? Some relationships, listen, there may be some relationships that are going to have to fall by the wayside as you get move through time or get older or walk down some spiritual path or come to some realizations. I think those things start to kind of become self-evident. I mean, it does help to come from a place of kindness. Again, one day I'm going to never say this again. Being a Buddhist is not about being a doormat. It's actually kind of the opposite. It's really about breaking delusion, and sometimes that takes a lot of courage. And sometimes you're kind of forced to be in a position to wake somebody up, and they may not wake up, and you may have to sever relationships or things like that. But You can always do it with kindness rather than this righteous feeling of, I'm going to crush this, or I'm going to tell you the truth, or I'm going to make you see, or I'm going to do that. Sometimes that's as aggressive as anything else, and comes from a negative emotion of anger. I'll tell it like it is. That's not always we have to use wisdom, we have to use a bit of skillful means, you know what I mean? You see your grandparent or your parent and just say, man, you look really old today. You've gotten so old since I saw you. That's a horrific thing to say to somebody, isn't it? Although it might be true. Man, some people may be able to hear it and laugh at it, something like that. But some people may be very disturbed by that. But it's the truth. The truth is, I haven't seen you in 6 months, and you look like you've aged 5 years. That's true. It's unkind. Is it compassionate? I'm not saying to be duplicitous to get your way. I'm not saying to use truth to seduce, you know, magnetize. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying to be compassionate and wise and kind. That's also truth. Okay. Let us dedicate the merit from today's session for the benefit of all beings. And thank you, Nick Solidio, for always being here and for your kindness and generosity, without which this class could not happen. By this merit, may all beings attain the state of enlightenment, conquer the enemies of faults and delusions. May they be liberated from this ocean of samsara and its pounding waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death. See you next week.